Marvel used to be the kind of studio where opening weekend numbers felt like a victory lap. Every release was an event. Packed theaters, endless fan theories, social media exploding with speculation. But with Fantastic Four: First Steps, the mood shifted. It opened with a decent bang, roughly $117.6 million domestically, but the celebration didn't last long. Just a week later, ticket sales nosedived, plunging by 66%. In Hollywood, that's the kind of drop that makes studios start holding emergency meetings. It's not just about this one movie, it's about what that drop represents. For years, Marvel's strategy was simple: build anticipation, deliver spectacle, and cash in on that first weekend hype. But lately, that formula's been cracking. Fans are still showing up for the premiere, but the energy doesn't stick. People aren't coming back for repeat viewings. They're not telling their friends to drop everything and see it right now. They're moving on, and that's where the bigger story begins. The truth is, Fantastic Four: First Steps was supposed to be more than just another superhero flick. This was the reboot, the moment Marvel would introduce the Fantastic Four into the MCU canon in a way that connected with today's audience. The studio wanted this to be the spark that lit the next phase on fire, leading straight into Avengers: Doomsday. But instead, it's become a cautionary tale of how even big-budget blockbusters can misfire in a changing market. Superhero fatigue isn't just a buzzword anymore, it's measurable. 2025 has been rough for capes and tights across the board, not just for Marvel. DC's latest Superman might have pulled stronger summer numbers, but even that wasn't a runaway cultural phenomenon. The big difference? Superman gave audiences a spectacle they actually talked about for weeks. With Fantastic Four, the conversation fizzled almost instantly. And not just because of the plot. When the numbers started to slide, Bob Iger, Disney's CEO, stepped in. Now, Iger's not the type to stay silent when a tentpole's under fire, but instead of letting the box office speak for itself, he made a point to reframe the entire narrative. He called Fantastic Four an original property for Disney, insisting that for a huge chunk of today's audience, these characters were completely new. Technically, he's not wrong. Plenty of younger viewers have never seen the previous attempts at a Fantastic Four movie. But here's the problem. That line of defense didn't land. To longtime fans, the original property spin sounded tone-deaf, as if Disney was ignoring the fact that the Fantastic Four had been adapted multiple times before with mixed results. It didn't help that critics were already questioning whether the studio understood why people were losing interest in the MCU in the first place. And that's before we even get to the casting storm. From the moment Pedro Pascal was announced as Reed Richards, the online debate started. Was he the right fit for Marvel's smartest man? Could he convincingly play the grounded yet brilliant leader of the Fantastic Four? Some fans were thrilled. Pascal's been riding a wave of popularity from The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. But others were skeptical, pointing to everything from his age to the chemistry he'd need with the rest of the team. Once the movie hit theaters, those doubts didn't exactly fade. The most loyal Marvel supporters will defend casting choices until the end. But there was a noticeable lack of enthusiasm for Pascal's version of Richards. Some viewers thought the character came off flat. Others said the tone felt mismatched for the role. In a franchise built on iconic portrayals, think Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, this kind of lukewarm reception is dangerous. The timing didn't do Fantastic Four any favors either. The summer release window was already stacked. Weapons and Freakier Friday were gaining traction, pulling in audiences that might have gone for Marvel's latest instead. Add in the heavyweight presence of Superman and suddenly, Fantastic Four wasn't the clear must-see event it needed to be. Competition isn't new to Marvel. They've gone toe-to-toe with huge films before. But when you're fighting for attention in a market where superhero movies aren't automatically top priority, every factor matters. And here, Marvel was outmaneuvered. The studio leaned heavily on name recognition and franchise loyalty, but audiences didn't bite the way they used to. The bigger concern? What this means for Avengers: Doomsday. This was supposed to be the movie that built hype, introduced new characters, and reassured fans that Marvel still had the magic. Instead, it's raised questions about whether the MCU's creative direction is connecting at all. The stakes for Doomsday are now enormous. If that film can't deliver a win, both critically and commercially, it won't just be a bad quarter for Disney. It could set the tone for the next several years of the franchise, and not in a good way. And fans know it. You can feel the shift in the conversations online. Where there used to be anticipation and excitement, there's now hesitation. People are waiting for the reviews before committing to a ticket. They're openly wondering if the MCU is worth investing in anymore. For a studio that built its empire on hype, that's a dangerous place to be. Of course, Disney isn't throwing in the towel. Behind the scenes, there's talk of pulling out every trick in the book for Doomsday. Surprise cameos, multiverse crossovers, nostalgic callbacks to the Infinity Saga, it's all on the table. Kevin Feige's been here before, turning risky moves into gold, but this time, the landscape is different. Nostalgia works when the audience is already engaged. Right now, Marvel's fighting to convince people to even show up. And here's the real kicker. No amount of behind-the-scenes scrambling can erase the fact that Fantastic Four didn't deliver the cultural punch it needed. It's not a total disaster. Box office numbers are still respectable compared to smaller films. But by Marvel standards, this is a stumble. And stumbles can snowball fast in a shared universe. Fans aren't asking for the impossible. They're not demanding another Avengers, Endgame every year. What they want is the feeling they had during Marvel's golden era. Compelling characters, stories worth following, and a sense that every installment matters. Instead, Fantastic Four felt like a placeholder. Something to fill a gap rather than redefine the game. That's the danger of leaning too heavily on franchise branding. It can create a false sense of security where studios assume audiences will show up no matter what. But in 2025, with streaming options at home and ticket prices pushing families to be more selective, brand loyalty isn't enough. People want to be excited. They want to be surprised. They want to feel like they're part of something big again. Marvel's problem right now isn't just that Fantastic Four underperformed. It's that the missteps surrounding it, from the defensive PR moves to the casting controversies, are reinforcing a narrative that the MCU has lost its way. Every time the conversation turns away from the movie itself and toward politics, studio statements, or behind-the-scenes drama, the brand takes another hit. If Marvel wants to turn this around, Avengers, Doomsday has to be more than just another crossover. It has to prove that they still understand their audience, that they can tell stories that feel fresh without alienating the fans who built the MCU in the first place. The window to make that statement is shrinking. Because here's the thing. For all its flaws, the MCU still has the potential to capture the world's attention again. The foundation is there. The characters are beloved. The universe is rich with possibilities. But if they keep misreading the room, if they keep letting the noise overshadow the storytelling, they risk turning Marvel fatigue from a temporary slump into a permanent condition. Fantastic Four. First steps should have been a confident stride into a new era. Instead, it's become a case study in how quickly momentum can slip away. Whether you loved it, hated it, or felt indifferent, it's clear that Marvel's no longer operating in the same world it dominated a decade ago. The rules have changed. The audience has changed. And now, the studio has to decide, adapt, or watch the magic fade. Because if Avengers Doomsday doesn't bring that magic back, the conversation a year from now won't be about box office numbers. It'll be about whether Marvel's reign is officially over. Now, if you're still rooting for the MCU to find its footing, you're not alone. The question is whether Marvel's listening, and if they're willing to take the bold steps needed to win back the fans who've already started walking away. The next move is theirs, and the clock is ticking.